burping, spitting, farting, picking the nose, blowing the nose, all kinds of inappropriate behaviors that you want to escape from. Today, we want to talk about 5 of the highest etiquette countries in the entire world. I wanted to shoot this video and make this a special edition for all loyal Nomad Elite followers. This has been a topic that a lot of people don't want to touch. However, I personally feel that this is a topic that resonates on a very deep level with so many of us, where we always think that, we never want to go to a place where there are a lot of people with low etiquette, and we want to aim to visit and live in places with high etiquette, high morals, high standards, high ethics. But now in this video specifically, we're going to talk about 5 top places for etiquette. Let's get started with the first place that I wanted to talk with you about. And the first place is Japan. Yes, the country in the Far East is a place where high etiquette is regarded as the gold standard. And there are several countries that can be referred to as the gold standard when it comes to etiquette, when it comes to dining, when it comes to behavior, just when it comes to social skills, where other countries just haven't caught on yet. And so we wanted to take time now to talk about Japan. The experience that I had in Japan goes back several years during my time in Southeast Asia. When I was visiting Japan, I have Japanese friends living in Yokohama and Tokyo. And I'm never going to forget when I went out with them to eat Japanese restaurant, Korean food. It doesn't matter where you go with a Japanese person. They have incredible high etiquette. They won't blow their nose when they're eating. So when you go out to eat with a Japanese person, and that person was born in Japan, raised in Japan, has Japanese etiquette, then that person will likely never blow their nose in front of you, especially when you're eating. It's considered rude. It's considered low etiquette. It's considered disgusting. Japanese, they don't do that. Blowing the nose is just one thing, right? Another thing would be speaking with a full mouth. You don't do that, right? You eat, you chew, you swallow, and then you speak. And so how the conversations went in Japan with the people that I met, with my friends, my Japanese friends, was that one person talked, the other person ate and listened to the person talking. So when my friend was talking, I was just eating my meal, and I'm coming from a country where etiquette is highly regarded, is a necessity for success pretty much. It's a necessity for being regarded as considerate. That's what it's all about. Etiquette is about being considerate. It's about not being self-centered. That's something that I learned from an early age on, and I'm blessed, I'm fortunate to come from a country with high etiquette, and having been to countries with low etiquette and high etiquette, I can tell that the Japanese are something special. They have high etiquette, definitely. Now, the thing is that people are not very direct with certain things, and that might be regional, but the Japanese, they are not very direct. They're not confrontational, very polite. They think twice before they say something, and they're considerate. They're actually very positive with how they communicate. And I kind of appreciate that too. I feel like optimism is an undervalued good. Optimism is really what creates success. So Japan is definitely a country with high etiquette, high morals, and I would say also high ethics. And this has been confirmed to several people I talked to, several people that worked in Japan, lived in Japan, did business in Japan. They told me that the Japanese can be trusted. The Japanese have a high work ethic, high standards, high morals, great people, trustworthy people. And like I told you, it's from my experience and experience from people that I have personally worked with, that are friends of mine, foreigners living in Japan, doing business in Japan, working in Japan. We're all in alignment with this fact. Okay, let's talk about the second country. And that country is Italy. Italy is a country with extremely high etiquette. I'm actually in Rome right now. I'm in Rome, Italy. Italy is a country where etiquette is just embedded, deeply embedded in the DNA, and it resonates with so many foreigners that come from countries where etiquette is seen as a necessity, where etiquette is seen as part of that person. You come to Italy and you're like, wow, Italians, they behave fantastically. Yes, they can be very direct. Don't get me wrong. Italians are very direct. And they're very honest. And they're confrontational too. So if you do something that's not all right, they'll tell you. They don't talk around the bush. They're straight shooters. And so that throws some people apart when they come to Italy or when they deal with an Italian and they're like, wow, he might be right about what he's saying, but he's a little bit too direct for my taste. But this is just how Italians are. I grew up in Austria, and on my mother's side, people were Italian. And so my grandparents, were very Italian. And so I learned a lot from that. And I'm very grateful for the education from the etiquette that I received from my mother's side, and love it, right? But when you come here and it's all about etiquette and they are direct about it, confrontational, for instance, in certain places in Italy, it can be inappropriate to ask to have your cell phone recharged. If, for instance, a specific area of place like restaurant is reserved for, let's say, late night activities, right? Late night concerts. And you want to sit there, you want to record them. I mean, I had this happening to me yesterday, actually. So when you're watching this video, it's already been quite a few days in the past. But I've had this happening, and, typically, like in America, they probably wouldn't be a big problem, but in Italy, they're very meticulous about that. And so I asked that, and I can see in the waiter's face that he wasn't happy about that question. But anyway, then I went to another restaurant and we recorded there too. And they actually turned up the electricity for us so that we could sit in the garden. There were no people in the garden. So they actually turned up the electricity so that we could use the plugs in that other area, which I really appreciate. It can be either or, but don't be surprised if you get a no at times. It's just how it is. In Italy, when you're dining, and Italy is the gold standard of dining. Italy produces the most wine in the entire world. World famous for its food. It's dining. And so if you go to eat in Italy, like at an average restaurant, the food will be better than oftentimes at a high-class restaurant in America. How do I know? Well, I've lived in America for a couple of years now, and I've lived in Europe for over 2 decades. And so I can compare. And I can tell you that. And if you go to an Italian restaurant, there's a certain process, there's a certain expectation from you. As much as there's an expectation from the consumer to the business, to the restaurant. So what's important in Italy, right? When you eat, right? Again, kind of like in Japan, you don't speak with a full mouth. Gotta have social skills. You can learn them. So you basically want to become part of it, right? In Rome, do as the Romans do. In Japan, do as the Japanese do. Japan and Rome is similar in many ways. It's just Italy is more extroverted, Japan is more introverted. Nothing wrong with either side. They're both great. They're great people in all countries. I truly believe that. I've experienced both sides, so I know. But in Italy, you don't burp, don't fart. You don't pick your nose. You don't spit out your food. You don't do that. In Italy, you don't do that. If you do that, you're just regarded as low class. It's just a certain social standard, a dining standard that you have to comply with if you're here. If you're in a different country, you do as people in that country. In Italy, for instance, I parked my car at a parking spot. I mean, technically it was one I parked right next to the road. And it clearly said parking not allowed, but it still parked, which is my mistake. But a guy could not get through with his vehicle because the roads are very narrow. And I was blocking part of it, which was my mistake. And I talked to my colleague, the one I'm working with here in Italy, and she said, well, you can park here. And then like, maybe not. Because as soon as I jumped out of the car, there were so many people turning and it was really tight. So it was probably just a matter of time until somebody would hit my car, crash and scratch it, whatever. We ended up moving the car. And it was the best decision. But that guy, the first guy that could not get through, he could get through, but it was really tight. And he told me in Italian, "Can you park here?" He said it like that. So very direct. Now, he's not a police officer to tell me, but he's right about it. He's right about it because it's, again, etiquette. And I didn't know or didn't really pay attention or didn't think twice. And that's just something you have to get accustomed to in any country, I think. So it's not just about Italy, but this is just another thing where like, yeah, you should probably pay attention to that. And, when you're being served food in Italy or when you ask a question or anything, you always say thank you. Especially if the person is giving you information that they're not required to give you, right? If they're helping you out of goodwill. And in Italy, like Italians are very devoted people. Like, in my humble opinion, Italians are the most devoted people that I've ever met. When they work 100%. When they're with their family, they are with their family 100% focused, right? And this is so like satisfying, it's so uplifting. It's glorious. It's how life should be, in my opinion. And I hope Italy will start doing better economically. If you are a person of high standards, if you are a person who values etiquette, who values good social behavior, social skills, then Italy is a place where you probably feel right at home. Next, we have Canada. Canada is a place with lots of skilled people, with lots of high etiquette people. And undoubtedly, Canadians are some of the friendliest people in the entire world. I really believe that. I've met so many Canadians. I've worked with so many Canadians, have so many Canadian friends. And Canadians have a special place in my heart. They really have a special place in my heart because they represent so much good, so much quality where I feel like the Canadians are something special. High etiquette. In Canada, it's not unheard of. In fact, it's very common. It's super common to apologize when you're wrong, when you get something wrong, when you do something not 100%. Canadians often say, I'm sorry. And that's great. That's etiquette, social skills, not trying to satisfy your own ego by denying what you did, which a lot of us are doing. I'm also doing that at times, but I feel like Canadians are definitely the gold standard in terms of etiquette. A lot of them are. The old people are like that, but a lot of them are just good norms, saying thank you, saying I'm sorry, and being polite, being professional. All of that is very present in Canada. And you don't have to live in Canada to absorb that energy. You can do business with Canadians and get that energy. And that's something that is not everywhere. There are professional people everywhere. I do believe there are people with etiquette everywhere, but in some countries it's just more present than in others. And Canada is such a place where you really feel like, and also the optimism in Canada. Like, Canadians are very positive people. It's a very business-friendly environment too. Like, so many entrepreneurs are born in Canada. Being around optimistic people is just uplifting. It's inspirational. It's gratifying. And Canadians are very professional people. And I love them as much as I love all the people that we're talking about in this video. But if you want high etiquette, then Canada is probably a good option for you. Let's talk about Singapore, another country in Asia that is definitely a country of high etiquette. Singapore got very strict laws in terms of just littering, throwing stuff on the street. Not really accepted in Singapore, right? Or just smoking in certain areas can lead to fines. Just as much as it can lead in many countries. But in Singapore, I feel like this is extreme. And Singaporeans are very disciplined people. They're people of high etiquette, very professional, very intelligent, very successful. I've worked with many Singaporeans, and I have mostly good things to say about them in terms of efficiency, in terms of professionalism. Lots of good things to say about Singaporeans. Singapore is a very clean place. Despite of its geographic location in the tropics where tropical diseases are very common, Singapore is the kind of place where you really feel like this place is super clean. The people are well behaved. Just looking at the streets, you rarely see 80 things there that should be there, like trash, napkins, cigarettes. You don't see that much. You see it sometimes, sure, but not that much. So it's a really clean place that I feel like a lot of people really like. And Singapore is, I'd say, the gold standard of East Asia. It stands for so much. It stands for capitalism. It stands for professionalism, right? Singapore stands for so much. And Singapore put in a lot of work to get there. So Singaporeans deserve some applause because they have really cultivated a culture that is unheard of. If you want to do business and enjoy low taxes, and you have, of course, the required net worth, and they're willing to invest in Singapore, then I feel like it's probably one of the best places to be. And number 5, I'd say Australia. Australia is a place of high etiquette. Australians are very nice people. They're down to earth. Like, Australians are some of the most relaxed people you'll ever meet. I have quite a few close personal friends from Australia. One guy is a very close friend of mine. I stayed with him a couple times when I was visiting Australia over the past years, and he was just the friendliest guy that I've probably ever met. In Australia, there's something special. It's also the positive attitude, but it's also the accent, right? What's going on here? I mean, they just have a special accent too. As much as the British have a special accent, or the South Africans, slightly different accent. North Americans have a different accent. But Australians are like something special, They have also, I think, achieved a lot. I know that Australia has been having problems over the past years. past crisis was not good, but Australians are really nice people. Etiquette is definitely important in Australia as much as it is important in lots of different parts in the world. And as you can see in this video, we are not just talking about one specific region on this planet. We have now 4 continents that we're talking about. And for sure, there are high etiquette places in other places too, but we decided to focus on the top 5. But going to Australia will definitely, resonate with you if you're into high etiquette. You don't have to feel like, I'm going to be worried about like people behaving a certain way that I'm not accustomed to. You're coming from a high etiquette country, then Australia will probably fit you pretty well. Which of the discussed countries offers the highest etiquette? What are your thoughts? Leave a comment below and let us know. Thank you for watching.